Joining us on set now, we have the CEO of the Trinidad and Tobago International Financial Center, Ramesh, and also Franco, Chong, the chairman of the board of the Trinidad and Tobago IFC. What is the IFC? How does it all relate to the landscape of Trinidad and Tobago? And as we approach the budget, what is the role of this entity, this sector, in ensuring that Trinidad and Tobago truly achieves its development mandate? Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Ima.
Now, Mr. Ramesh, maybe we can start with you. The IFC was something that was touted for quite a while now.
Yes.
After the global financial meltdown, many wondered whether there's even space,
yes,
whether there's any viability to continuing this project.
Yes.
Today, we now have the IFC.
Yes.
How do you respond to the critics that this still doesn't make any sense?
It is a very interesting question. You know, one of the first things that we did when I came on board about 6 months ago was to ask that very same question, is the IFC still a viable concept? What we discovered, Hema, was a very interesting fact that IFC was not only alive and well, it was actually in a place in St. Clair, in a building that has a big lion face, and it was actually operating and serving 13 countries around the region. And I'm sure you know who I'm talking about.
Right.
So what we discovered was that when this Canadian bank took over RBTT and had 13 different territories under it, they had two choices. One is to consolidate all the back office processing in Canada, where they already had established systems and infrastructure, or to consider consolidating in a place in Caribbean. And they did a study, and what it came out was that Trinidad and Tobago was the most appropriate place where they could actually house most of their back office processing. A, because it had a pool of skilled manpower. B, it was most cost effective to do so. And three, and most importantly, Trinidad was below the hurricane belt, which made it actually very safe to locate all their processing in one location.
All the processing in one location. Who does the entity report to?
TTIFC?
Yeah. Who does it report to?
You mean our company?
Yes.
We are a state enterprise, and we report to the Ministry of Finance. And in this instance, we report to Minister Vasan Bharat, who's a minister within the Ministry of Finance.
Now, looking at the structure of the TTIFC, let's talk a little bit about the structure and some of the objectives that you have laid out. So we now talk about the rationale behind it. Obviously, you've made a strategic plan. A lot of objectives have been put, Mr. Ramesh.
The first point, Hema, is that we are an energy-based country. So we know for sure that our primary resources, oil and gas, are going to run out at some point in time. Therefore, we need to find alternate revenue sources to sustain our economy to grow. And if you really look at the GDP composition, the second largest sector in the GDP beyond oil and gas is actually the financial sector. And in 2011, the financial services sector was the only sector that grew by 4% when compared to many other sectors that were actually having negative growth. And secondly, and more importantly, while the oil and gas sector accounts for 45% of the GDP, it only employs 4% of the employable workforce in Trinidad, as compared to the financial sector, which actually accounts for about 13% of GDP. It employs more than 10% of the working class force. So there is a lot more opportunity for sustainable employment, especially for our knowledge workers in the financial sector.
Now, in terms of the IFC, when you think about a financial hub, somehow my mind likens it to something like Cayman or those existence where you see a number of international banks being set up in one location. Is it similar to that?
Well, it's really, there are different types of IFCs around the world. And one of the IFCs is exactly as what you said, like the Cayman Islands, where it become a booking center. Some refer to tax havens, where there are special laws geared toward these companies with favorable tax incentives. There are also the IFCs around the world, like the New York Stock Exchange, or New York or Hong Kong, where these are full-blown IFCs, where they have a lot of trading securities and so on. But we are not there as yet. We are now starting with the third type of IFC, which are the booking the back office operations and mid office operations.
Okay.
And that is where we're starting, and we are moving towards this this front office operations.
Moving towards front office operations, Mr. Ramesh, obviously there's a strategic plan.
Yes.
Where have you reached in this plan?
Yes. Our plan is to start with those companies that already are having a presence in Trinidad and Tobago with a regional footprint, because they know Trinidad, they know its advantages, they know its disadvantages. So we want to start looking at those companies that have an interest in Trinidad and Tobago, and for them to consolidate their processing into Trinidad and Tobago. The second target segment that we are looking at are those that have a limited presence in Trinidad but have a presence in the region. The third market segment, which we will eventually get to, are the international banks and financial institutions like the HSBC of this world, which don't have much of a presence. But once we have proven ourselves to be a very cost-effective location, we can begin to attract these international companies.
Mr. Chong, what is it finesse? Finess.
Finesse.
Right. I was wondering whether I got the pronunciation right. What exactly is it? I'm not financially okra. My lecturer is going to be a little upset with that too.
Well, finesse is an acronym that we use at the TTIFC. Mm-hmm. It really stands for Financial Institutional Support Services. And that is where we are concentrating on in these back office operations.
Okay.
Right.
What sort of support do you offer? For the people like myself, my lecture is going to be livid this morning.
Well, basically, we are there to facilitate these companies to come into Trinidad to set up operations where it's cost savings. Our CEO said that there are considerable savings for these operators to come to Trinidad and Tobago. There are certain right now, previously, the IFC thought that they would have had to set up all these new laws for financial institutions. But for this, to set up the back office operations, we already have the Free Zones Act, and which we are using, and we are tweaking it a bit for these financial institutions and creating, removing disincentives for these finance institutions to come to Trinidad and Tobago. There are certain disincentives because the Free Zone Act was predominantly geared towards manufacturing and not these financial services.
What are the successes to date? Have you measured the level of success that the Trinidad and Tobago IFC has achieved thus far?
Actually, we recently signed an MOU with Scotiabank, whereby they are going to establish a regional processing center for their southeastern Caribbean in Trinidad and Tobago, investing about 100 million TT dollars. And that is expected to consolidate about 300 jobs within Trinidad and eventually add another 200 jobs subsequently. And the model that they are currently using is, if I can illustrate this diagram, is every bank and insurance company have many branches.
Right.
And each branch will typically have some processing capability inside of the branches. Now, instead of locating these processing capabilities inside of each branch, many of them are moving towards consolidating it into a central shared services center. And this reduces the cost and improves efficiency.